and welcome to Sectors Up Close. I'm Angeline Ong. Our focus today is on the outlook for European luxury brands, and my guest is Joachim Klement, the head of strategy at Liberum Capital. Now, European luxury brands are traditionally resilient to the ups and downs of the global economy. The MSCI Europe Luxury Goods Index, which includes the likes of LVMH, Hermes and Burberry, has not only outperformed the wider European market during the pandemic, it's also outperformed on an annualized basis for the past 3, 5 and 10 years. In fact, it's returned an annualized 14% since 2011. That's nearly double the 7.5% of the MSCI Europe index during the same period. But this sector is heavily reliant on one market, and that is China. JP Morgan estimates that a third of all luxury goods is sold to consumers there. So when China recovered from the pandemic sooner and faster than other regions, so did demand for luxury goods. But now this outlook is less than certain, and not because of the rapid spread of the Delta variant. As part of the sweeping domestic policy changes under the Common Prosperity Policy, Chinese President Xi Jinping last month pledged to, quote, adjust excessive incomes. And that sparked a sell-off in some of the biggest names in the space. So what's next? Let's ask Joachim Klement of Liberum Capital. Now, Joachim, what do you think about China's move? Is the Common Prosperity Policy going to hit the sector?
It inevitably will curb consumption to some extent, and obviously luxury consumption, because that's where people save first. So yes, it is going to hurt, but we are a little bit less concerned than most investors about the impact on European luxury goods, simply because while 1/3 to actually 40% of revenues for companies like LVMH come out of China, you shouldn't forget that another third comes out of Europe. And in Europe and the UK, a lot of investors are still sitting tight on their cash from the pandemic.
But winter is coming in Europe, and also we've seen the outbreaks of the Delta variant in China, and that's kind of putting a threat to this whole recovery picture. What is your outlook for luxury based on all this?
Yeah, we think that at the moment it is probably too soon to go into these luxury retailers and luxury good companies because of those threats about China cooling down and Europe not being able yet to make up for the difference. But once we leave the winter season behind, we shouldn't forget that by that time we have a population that is practically vaccinated all over the place, and we will face a situation where travel will pick up. People will start to travel, and usually, and that's something that people don't always realize, they buy a lot of luxury goods in airports or when they're on vacation and splurge and treat them a little bit. And that is something for 22 that we would like to see.
Now let's focus on the European sector. LVMH is not only the largest company on the Stock 600, but there is also an interesting factoid. It makes up around 1/3 of the market cap of the luxury sector. How does the dominance of one company affect your view?
I think in certain sectors, we're thinking about Facebook or Alphabet, the dominance of these mega companies is a real problem in terms of antitrust issues, where they just kind of can suck up all the air from all potential rivals and kind of capture the market. That is less the case in luxury goods because it's very brand dominated, very individual, and there's also a lot of brand loyalty. People don't just kind of buy a Louis Vuitton at one time and then a Burberry coat the next time. There is a certain loyalty there, like with cars, and that kind of keeps LVMH in check naturally.
Now, we've been looking, there doesn't seem to be a pure ETF that tracks the luxury sector. So how would you invest, and how would you tell an investor who hasn't got exposure to the space to invest?
So we've recently looked into that and found that Kering is actually one of our top stock picks for 2022. The company who owns brands like Gucci, mostly Balenciaga, Alexander McQueen, you name it, and they have had a pretty rough time over the last month. First hit by weak retail sales in China. We've talked about the clampdown there. And then second by I would say less than fantastic revenues from Gucci, because Gucci makes about 70% of its revenues from tourism, tourists who come from Asia or the US to Europe and buy Gucci goods. And obviously that is still a little bit hampered at this point in time. So the result is that compared to LVMH, which is substantially bigger, Kering trades at 23.6 times 2022 earnings compared to 29 times for LVMH. At the same time, Kering is way more profitable. So given the level of profitability and where the Gucci sales can go next year, we think Kering is about 20% undervalued at the moment.
Thank you very much. A very interesting space indeed. I'm sure we'll revisit this. Joachim Klement from Liberum Capital. Now, before I go, here are some of the top stories in this space. Danish jewellery maker Pandora says it is betting on Generation Z to boost sales in the United States and China and set out a revenue growth target of 6 to 8% in the 2021 to 2023 period. The world's biggest jewellery maker by production capacity says it will soon launch more pieces catering to Gen Z, younger people aged 6 to 25, whom Bank of America estimates makes up 32% of the global population. France's champagne industry group is set to resume exports to Russia from Wednesday. This is despite a Russian law forcing champagne producers to add a sparkling wine label to the back of their bottles. The Interprofessional Champagne Wine Committee had asked producers to boycott Russia after the law was introduced in July. AFP reported over the weekend that the group had decided to ditch the boycott as they had made their point and no longer wanted to harm their clients. And finally, red, silver and blue ruled the Metropolitan Museum of Art at a youth-driven Met Gala on Monday. There were show-stopping outfits from rapper Lil Nas X, who wore a Versace suit of gold armor. Kim Kardashian appeared in a black bodysuit. The gala was chaired by 4 of the biggest Gen Z stars: actor Timothée Chalamet, singer Billie Eilish, who wore a Marilyn Monroe-inspired gown, poet Amanda Gorman, and tennis star Naomi Osaka. The so-called Oscars of the East Coast is an annual fundraiser intended to highlight young designers and celebrities. And that is your roundup of the European luxury goods sector. I'm Angeline Ong, and this is Reuters.